Chapter 60 The Long Reach. Mars, or Trigan, as Graham and Bouncer had come to know it, orbits the Sun on an eccentric 687 Earth-day orbit. Now, eccentric doesn't mean it is like your favorite, slightly weird uncle, but eccentric in this instance means that it is not circular. However, what this does mean is that there can be a large difference between the distance Trigan is from the Sun at its aphelion, furthest, and perihelion, closest. At its closest, Trigan is around 128 million miles from the Sun, and at its furthest it is around 154 million miles. Earth is on a much more circular orbit, but one which takes only 365 days to complete, so at times the distance between Earth and Trigan can be as little as 34 million miles and others as much as 250 million miles. So, what does all this mean? Well, for people wishing to travel from Earth to Trigan, it means you need to time it well, or take a lot longer to get there. Or be able to break the conventional laws of physics, take your pick. This difference in distance is a particularly big problem for earthly space agencies, NASA, ESA, etc., as they only have access to either chemical rockets, which burn for a short time making a lot of thrust, or electrical thrusters which can burn for a long time but with less thrust. Keeping that travel distance down saves time but needs to be timed well, as can be seen from the distances it can make a 200 million mile difference. Unfortunately for Graham and Bouncer, the planets were currently around 90 million miles apart, and were getting further apart. Their friend Dellie, though, had a few tricks up his fourth dimension sleeves. The biggest, baddest, and best was his warp drive. The warp drive allowed massive distances to be chewed up in a matter, literally, of no time, very much like the Solarium teleportation process. It did, though, require a strong stomach, at least until you got used to it. As Dellie started the warp jump configuration, Bouncer started to feel the effects of the developing fields, the ones that turned your stomach. "How long will it take, Dellie?" choked Bouncer as he fought the urge to vomit up his breakfast. "Not long, Bouncer," replied Dellie, his hands flying over the controls like some manic maestro in front of an orchestra or a mad pianist creating the maddest tune you've ever heard. "In fact," he continued, "to be honest, it will take just an instant. That's the wonder of warp travel. You sort of just appear there a moment after you left where you were. Of course, there is much more to it than that, but in essence it's just a little whoosh." "Oh, that's good," said Bouncer, slowly getting things under control. "There you go," announced Dellie, pushing a big red button marked stop. "We have arrived in Trigan." "Oh," said Bouncer. "Already?" "Well, I did say it was almost an instantaneous thing, Bouncer," replied Dellie. As they undid their seat belts and prepared to leave Dellie's ship, he reminded them that they should probably change into something a little more robust, or a spacesuit, whichever was easiest. They chose vehicle mode and rolled down the ramp towards the lava tube Dellie had hidden the Solarium only a few weeks earlier. "I do love this place, Dellie," said Graham, smiling all across his rough and tough Land Rover grille. "Thank you for bringing us back here. The ride this time was much more bearable." There was a little puff of evaporation as a drop of water leaked from one of his windscreen washers. Bouncer, however, was less emotional as he did his best bouncy thing all over the place. "I just love the lower gravity, Graham," screamed Bouncer as he soared into the air before landing again in a cloud of red dust. As they moved toward the lava tube, Dellie went over the plan. "Right, so we'll get the Solarium back to my ship, then back to Earth, and we'll stash it somewhere Sepulchre can find it." "Yup, kind of," answered Graham. "We'll use a Solarium masking device to hide the real Solarium from Sepulchre sensors and then hide it in plain sight. I was thinking in the statue of Pathfinder at JPL. I loved meeting Pathfinder. I think it would be a nice honor. Plus, I can't think Sepulchre will ever think of looking there." "No, I think you're right, Graham." As the three friends entered the lava tube and closed in on the pile of Solarium, they saw a silver-gloved hand picking up raw Solarium and taking it through a vaporous, shimmering ring hanging in the air. "They're here," whispered Graham, stopping just as he turned a corner in the lava tube and saw the portal. At that moment the shimmering ring twisted on its axis, allowing the people on the other end to look around the space. There was nothing to see. Dellie and Bouncer were hidden in the lava tube entrance, Graham round the corner. Graham could just see into the portal, and what he could see was a small pile of solarium, about 5 kilograms, on a table. Knowing to spring the trap, Graham rolled back to his friends and waved them forward with a thumbs up. The game was afoot. It was now or never. "Finally we can get this back to safety so they cannot get any," shouted Graham as he very obviously rolled round the corner. At the sound the portal shrank to be barely visible. In fact, Graham could barely see it when he rounded the corner, but continued the act as a precaution. "So we'll get this back to Earth and we'll hide it with Farmer, agreed?" said Dellie. "Yes, defo a plan, Graham," agreed Bouncer. "Good, then let's get on with it," said Graham, scooping up his first load. With a pop and fizzle the shimmering ring collapsed, and the three friends were once again on their own. "Right then, let's get to work," announced Dellie, striding over to the solarium pile. "We need to get this back to Earth pronto. Once we've finished we can pop in and update Jean on the plan." "Roger to that," replied Graham and Bouncer in unison, already moving solarium to Dellie's ship. "We have a trap to spring,"